It was late at night. The world around me was dead silent and completely deserted. I was walking home along the narrow path cutting right through the middle of our garden. The atmosphere felt strangely suffocating, and the air suddenly grew heavy. Right then, a very familiar voice called out my name from behind. I froze. My heart skipped a beat. I scanned my surroundings, but I could see nothing through the misty darkness. Thinking it was just my imagination, I started walking again. But this time, it wasn't just a voice. I clearly heard the distinct crunch of dry leaves. Someone was walking right behind me, matching my footsteps perfectly. Terrified, I didn't dare look back. I bolted down the garden path and somehow made it inside the safety of my house. The days that followed were even stranger. A few days later, a chore took me to the very edge of the village, where an old, abandoned mansion stood, a place left deserted for decades. Dusk had just fallen. Standing in front of that massive, empty estate, a sudden chill ran down my spine. Driven by curiosity and a strange, irresistible pull, I carefully pushed the door open and stepped inside. The moment I crossed the threshold, I was greeted by a musty, choking odor and pitch darkness. Flicking on my flashlight, I saw ancient furniture covered in thick dust and old oil paintings hanging on the walls. The eyes in those portraits seemed to follow my every move. Suddenly, I heard heavy footsteps coming from upstairs, as if someone was pacing around, well aware of my presence. Following the sound of the footsteps, I moved toward the staircase. With every single step I took, the wooden stairs creaked and groaned beneath my weight. Reaching the top, I found myself in a long corridor. At the very end, a door stood ajar, letting a sliver of eerie, bluish light spill onto the floorboards. Summoning my courage, I stepped inside. Parts of the ceiling had caved in, and the floor was littered with dry leaves. Right in the middle of the room stood an old bed, and sitting on it was a figure wrapped in an old, torn dhoti, traditional cloth. My feet felt glued to the ground. When the beam of my flashlight hit the figure, the man slowly raised his head. His eyes were completely blank white. There were no pupils. And his face, it looked exactly like my father. The entity stepped off the bed and began gliding toward me at an agonizingly slow pace. There was no sound to his footsteps. It was as if he was floating in midair. Within seconds, the temperature inside the room plummeted below freezing, and my breath turned into visible plumes of mist. He stopped right in front of me and, in a faint, raspy whisper, hissed, "Son, don't you recognize me?" I didn't dare stay there for another second. Dropping my flashlight, I screamed into the darkness and sprinted back. Somehow, I burst through the front door and made it out to the main road. I pulled my phone out of my pocket and called home.
About a month passed. It was a pitch-black new moon night. A torrential downpour was raging outside with a violent thunderstorm. It was around 2 a.m. when suddenly our landline phone rang with a loud, piercing blare. I picked up the receiver and the police chief's frantic voice came through. "Listen, something horrific just happened. Tonight, Rahman committed suicide inside his jail cell. But before he died, he used his own blood to write on the wall, 'I didn't kill you, Shamsuddin. I only knocked you out and left you there. While you were lying in the ditch, someone else choked you to death. The real killer is still inside your house. The receiver slipped from my hand and crashed to the floor. That meant Rahman wasn't the actual killer? Right at that moment, the house lights flickered violently and died. Total pitch darkness. The room temperature plummeted below freezing once again. Terrified, I backed up against the wall, trembling. Suddenly, right behind me, out of the darkness, two completely white eyes lit up. A heavy, demonic, and entirely unfamiliar voice whispered right into my ear with a sickening chuckle. "What's wrong, son? You got Rahman framed beautifully. But what about me? Your father saw my true form in the garden that day, so he had to go. And you? By framing Rahman, you wiped away all my tracks forever. I really should give you a reward." To find out what happens next, subscribe to the channel right now. And let me know how you liked today's terrifying tale by hitting the like button and dropping your thoughts in the comments below.